This is Peppermint 8 Respin, issued on 11/30/2017. It's still based on Ubuntu 16.04, the long-term support version, and it will be supported until 2021. However, it differs from Peppermint 7 in that all of the updates to Ubuntu 16.04 have been included in the current version of Peppermint, and some of the problems I experienced with Peppermint 7, which were largely due to the underlying Ubuntu base, have been resolved, particularly the network manager. It now works perfectly. As you can see, my Wi-Fi network is installed and working. I've made a few changes. I've changed the wallpaper, but this is one of the wallpapers that's included in the ISO. If you right-click on the desktop and go to Change Desktop Background and left-click, you'll see a whole selection of them. Beautiful wallpapers. And then here you have the Peppermint logo, which is the way it comes. Chromium was the default web browser, but I downloaded Firefox, and it's version 57, Firefox Quantum. Now that came from the Ubuntu repositories. I also installed LibreOffice. There's no Office suite by default. I used a PPA which I found on an Ubuntu website for getting version 5.4.3.2. The version that's in the current Ubuntu 16.04 repository is quite old. But with the PPAs and snaps and app images and Flatpaks and various other means, deb files, I can get up-to-date software for all of the applications I used. And one of the advantages of version 16.04 of Ubuntu is that my scanner still works with that version, and it doesn't work with version 17.10. I did a video about this a while ago, and you can look it up on my channel. The reason I call this a hybrid is that while it's based primarily on Lubuntu with the LXDE desktop, it borrows a lot from other distributions. For instance, here's the Whisker menu. I can make it bigger if I want. And this, you may recognize, comes from XFCE. And notice that it's turned the right way around for a change with the categories on the left. That's one thing that was borrowed. Now, if I go to accessories, here's files. This is Nemo, which is borrowed from Linux Mint. It's one of the best file managers available for the GTK3 framework, and this is version 3.4.7. Another thing that was borrowed is the text editor. It's XED, also borrowed from Linux Mint. but this is basically the Mint fork of gedit. Another thing that was borrowed is the update manager. And this is Mint Update with certain additions by Peppermint, which is one of the best update managers. I've already updated my system. Now if I open the terminal and the file manager, one thing you'll see that works is window snaps. I can do half a screen. I can do quarter of a screen, or I can do the whole screen. Now, window snaps don't work with Lubuntu, but because this uses the XFWM4 window manager, which is from XFCE, window snaps work. And a number of other graphical enhancements are available here that don't work with Lubuntu. This is still oriented to people who primarily use the web. It has a lot of web applications like ICE, which allows you to put links to your favorite web pages in the menu. I went over this in more detail with my review of Peppermint 7, so I'm not going to go over it again. But if you want to go directly to your favorite website without opening the browser, this is a good way to do it. And its lack of an Office suite originally reflects that orientation toward web applications. However, it works perfectly well with desktop applications, and I prefer to have all of my own personal information and private information on my computer and not in the cloud. As far as resources is concerned, it's fairly light. I'm using 437,080 kilobytes of memory at the moment. And considering that I have Simple Screen Recorder running, that's quite light. It's also very quick, and if I got rid of some of the graphic enhancements, I could probably make it even faster. But this is really snappy as it comes. Now I'm not going to go through everything here, but note that under Sound and Video, it comes with VLC Media Player, and of course I installed Simple Screen Recorder, but it had Pulse Audio Volume Control and Pulse Audio Equalizer, as well as GUVC View. And under Internet, as I said, the Chromium web browser was the default. I installed Firefox. It also came with Dropbox, ICE, as I mentioned, the online user guide, and the Peppermint forum. And these are available by means of ICE. In other words, you click on these menu selections and you go directly to the web page. Now there's a settings panel, which is fairly extensive. It doesn't include everything, but it's got categories here: user, tweaks, hardware, network, and system. And if I go back here to user, you notice that there's also a Peppermint control center. Let me make that full screen. And here you can change the theme. Papyrus, I think that's spelled with an A in other distributions, but here it's spelled with an E. And this is a default, and of course you have many other choices. Now I changed the number of workspaces from 2 to 4. Window snapping was already enabled, but I unchecked wrap workspaces when reaching the screen edge because that interferes with the snapping to the screen edge. There's a section on keyboard and pointer. You can change the keyboard layout. You can change the way the pointing device works. Touchpad is enabled. I think I'm going to enable vertical edge scrolling. There's a whole section on keyboard shortcuts, and I'm of the age when I forget all of these. If you've been using a particular piece of software, for instance at work, if you use a word processor day after day after day, you might remember the keyboard shortcuts, but I go through so many different applications that for the most part I cannot remember keyboard shortcuts, but if you're interested in those, they're all listed here. Under desktop effects, you have ways of adjusting transparency. As you've seen, there's some transparency enabled. And then here's a whole series of advanced options, which I'm not going to go into. Let me see if that edge scrolling works. Yes, it does. That works very well. So that's Peppermint 8 Respin. It's a big improvement over Peppermint 7 in my opinion, largely because there's been a big improvement in the Ubuntu base, but also there have been new enhancements by the Peppermint developers. So this is a system that you could use either on a web-oriented computer or for ordinary desktop operation. It's light, fast, and easily configured. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.